Welcome back. Well, the Chinese Communist Party is now refusing to call Russia's attack on Ukraine an invasion. China's foreign minister telling his Russian counterpart that Beijing could see, quote, complicated and specific historical questions at play with Ukraine. It's also blaming the U.S. for fueling tensions with Moscow. Meanwhile, President Biden deflecting a question about China's role in the crisis. Watch this.
Are you urging China to help isolate Russia?
I'm not prepared to comment on that at the moment.
Joining me right now is the Atlas Organization founder and the author of China's Vision of Victory. Jonathan D.T. Ward is here. Jonathan, thanks very much for being here. We are just learning that Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin today. He says he supports Russia and Ukraine resolving their differences through talks. Your thoughts on the chess game underway, Russia, China, and where does the U.S. stand?
Hi, Maria. Well, I think the main thing, people are asking why now? Why has this happened? Why has Vladimir Putin rolled troops in and made these moves? And I think the answer is frankly, the support that he's gaining from China. I mean, his mission and sort of meeting in Beijing over the Olympic period and the Russia-China relationship that's been building up across every spectrum, economic, military, diplomatic, the announcement of a unlimited partnership. I mean, these are major transformations in Russian foreign policy, and that's what Putin, it appears, wanted to secure before doing this, was the backing of a superpower, and especially economically, because what this triggers, of course, is going to be massive sanctions. I mean, some of that has already come into place, so you're basically talking about economic warfare against Russia, and he needs to be sure that he has an economic patron here, and that is China. And we have always had a Russia-China problem. I mean, this has always been a combined adversary. These two nations are supporting each other. They have a view of history that is totally antithetical to the current world order, and they mean to undo the world order as it exists, to take apart the U.S.-led order. So they're working together, and Beijing's going to, deny that on the diplomatic stage. They want to have a little bit of deniability, but that's just nonsense. I mean, at the end of the day, they're Putin's greatest supporters.
So on the same day that Russia invades Ukraine, China flies 9 more jets into Taiwan's air defense zone, Jonathan. China's foreign ministry continuing to claim ownership of Taiwan. Watch this.
Taiwan is indeed not Ukraine. Taiwan has always been an inseparable part of China's territory. This is an irrefutable historical and legal fact.
Jonathan, what are your thoughts? Do you expect China to try to take over Taiwan?
Well, I think that possibility just got much more realistic. I mean, you've really broken a major norm here with the invasion of a sovereign country by, Russia invading Ukraine. I mean, that puts, 75 years of international norms into jeopardy. So for Beijing to watch that and have their own territorial ambitions, I think the ice has been broken in a very dangerous way, and that absolutely, the world became much more dangerous in that sense. And the other thing that matters, as a speaker of Russian and Chinese, I mean, I've been reading a lot of Putin's essays and speeches, and you go back to this view of history where he talks about Ukrainians, Belarusians, and Russians being all descendants of ancient Rus and things like that. And there's this view of history of reassembling lost territories and peoples, and the idea that Ukraine, sort of as a democracy, as an independent state that's aligned to the West, is a threat to Russia. I mean, that's essentially the same view that Xi Jinping has of Taiwan and of, territorial claims in his region. So you're talking about when people say there isn't ideology in play, it's really a matter of understanding what the ideology is, which is the idea that we're going back to this period where these major powers can rewrite history according to what they want it to be, review and revise outcomes that they didn't like, and do that by force. So, I lived in China in 2014 when Putin seized Crimea, and there was something going on that people called Putin Re, which is Putin fever, and there were even books written about it, where people were so excited about Vladimir Putin and his ability and willingness to use force in China. Lots of people were telling me, oh, we should just take the South China Sea. That's what they were talking about at the time, like Putin took Crimea. And, books were even written about this phenomenon of how popular Putin was in China. So I think that kind of military nationalism that certainly exists in China today, the party's own ambitions, its military buildups, these things that I've been warning people about for a long time, and we're starting to see that world come into being.
Yeah, I know you've studied Russia as well as China very well for a long time. The CCP has been stealing intellectual property for many years. Do you believe it is still stealing intellectual property from the West?
Oh, certainly. I mean, that's a widely understood phenomenon. It's been documented in every possible way. And, as has been said, it's one of the greatest wealth transfers in history. So, we have to deal with state-backed, state-incentivized intellectual property theft across every strategic industry. And, companies are going to have to deal with that directly. It's a major issue, certainly. And especially, I think, as we start to see that the economic relationship with, obviously, Russia, but also China is going to have to be reviewed massively. I mean, they're all going to increase their efforts to get what they think they need out of us as we try to impose restrictions.
Yeah, and we've heard Christopher Wray say so many times that China is the biggest threat. James Freeman and I wrote about this in our last book. James, jump in here.
Yeah, the message we're getting from D.C. is essentially that this should no longer be law enforcement priority. Have you seen any indication that espionage campaign by the CCP is declining?
Not that I'm aware of.
I wanted to ask you also, for people in Taiwan who are looking at what's happening in Ukraine and like a lot of people wondering about the parallels, Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. One good thing for the Taiwanese that the Ukrainians don't have in defending themselves from Russia is they have a lot of water between them and the Chinese mainland. Perhaps, I would say, a more capable military. How do you look at the situation for Taiwanese who are kind of pondering right now if this looks like an era where the Chinese Communist Party will feel more free to adventure abroad?
Well, I think the main thing for Taiwan here is their government has made this clear. I mean, being sure to take this all very seriously and to be prepared for what China has always said they'd like to do, realize that there is this interlocking, mutually supportive relationship between Russia and China that's very dangerous for the United States and could certainly throw us off balance. I mean, we have to prioritize the Pacific. I think that's correct. And Europe is the secondary theater now in the way that Asia was the secondary theater in the Cold War. But Taiwan's ability to defend itself is incredibly important. And I think that the alliance system from Japan to Australia, our partners like India, I mean, we all have to take the possibility of Beijing's military moves very, very seriously now. You've broken a major norm here with the use of force and by a major conventional army. I mean, this is not a small thing. I mean, Russia has been conducting military modernization for the last, couple of decades. They've used their military prolifically in the Middle East at this point. And, we have to be ready for a period now in which these states are willing to use force and go somewhat unchecked thus far. So Taiwan lives in that world now, and we all do too. So we've got to be prepared.
Absolutely. 200,000 troops, Russian troops in Ukraine. This is a serious move here by Vladimir Putin. Jonathan, thanks very much for weighing in on all of that.